The weekend was filled with drama and excitement as the NASCAR Winston Cup Series and the CART FedEx Championship Series events came down to fuel conservation. Paul Tracy wrapped up his 14th career win at the Milwaukee Mile while running on fumes.
My fuel light was on, fuel pressure warning light was on for the last 5 laps.
Bobby Labonte drove his way around the Monster Mile at Dover, but it was the fuel monster that Labonte had to deal with as he was able to outlast Jeff Gordon and Mark Martin to get his first win of the season at the MBNA Platinum 400. Jack Sprague made it 2 in a row with an easy win at Bristol as the race was filled with some tense moments in the pits. We have all the rumble-tumble action from the weekend in this week's edition of Speed Shots. Stay tuned. RPM Tonight is next. Hello, everyone. I'm John Kernan. Coming up on RPM Tonight, the professor will be here in a moment to talk Dover. Plus, he'll answer some of your email questions. We'll look back at Paul Tracy's win at Milwaukee, and we're going to thrill and amaze you with this week's edition of Speed Shots. But first, CART officials made some changes in the finishing order of Sunday's Miller Lite 225 at the Milwaukee Mile. 2 drivers were penalized a lap for passing under the yellow flag. Patrick Carpentier wound up being credited with a 9th place finish, while Juan Montoya was dropped back to the 10th finishing position. No question about who the winner was. Paul Tracy picked up his first victory in 2 years. Joel DeFerrin was posted as the 3rd place finisher, but CART officials are still trying to determine if DeFerrin passed the pace car illegally as he left pit road. Dario Franchitti wound up with a 7th place finish, while Big Mo came home in the 8th spot. Cristiano D'Amata and Roberto Moreno wound up with the final 2 points-paying positions. And speaking of points, here's a look at the standings. But keep in mind, Sunday's race results are still not official. Montoya leads Franchitti by only 2 points. Greg Moore is 3rd, only 4 points out of the lead. Michael Andretti and teammate Christian Fittipaldi are both 12 back. Just like Milwaukee, the NASCAR Winston Cup race at Dover came down to a battle of fuel mileage, and NASCAR's king of the gas can, Bobby Labonte, rolled the dice and came up a winner. And Bill Weber says that's becoming the norm at Dover instead of the exception.
The track at Dover used to be a monster, a true-to-life test of driver and desire, of man and machine. Now it's just a miser, a simple quiz of mind and math. You can see that winning doesn't even ignite the enthusiasm you would expect from a first-time winner in 1999. But it does make sense that a car with a credit card company on the hood would win a gas mileage affair, allowing you to borrow against fate and finally cash in on good fortune.
You know, we had a good car today. Wasn't quite as good as a few cars, but it was good when it counted. And Jimmy Mekar made the right call on getting fuel on that yellow, and we were able to stretch it just a little bit longer than maybe some of those other guys, and made it home to the end.
Well, I couldn't lie and tell you that we were sure of it, but no, we told him for the last 75 laps to please save fuel, and he is really, really good at it. And we built a brand new carburetor for here, and it worked out so good to come out of the box with a brand new piece. We treat them like children anyway, but to come out of the box with a new piece and sit on the pole and win the race and be a fuel mileage race is extra special. It really is.
Bobby Labonte was a win just waiting to happen. This season, he has fought the battle against an imposing foe, patience. Sunday, he finally won the test of time, surviving in a race reduced to fuel starvation and racing frustration.
I didn't worry about fuel mileage until probably the last 50 to go, and I got behind Dale Jarrett and I just rode there because it wasn't no sense in pushing it. At that point in time, if they had a yellow, it's still going to be all right because some other guys had already pitted. So I knew it could go at least 100, you know, but we never run this fuel cell out, so I wasn't sure what it would go to, and Jimmy never did. You know, he just went on a conservative mount, so it was closer at the end, I believe.
We didn't have the best car here, but we were able to capitalize on a situation that some of the others didn't, and we've been beat this way before, and you know, it feels good to win any way you can, but it feels good to get this under your belt for the year. Hopefully we can go on and maybe get a few more before the year's out, but we've still got the big picture in mind too.
Labonte became the 9th different winner in 13 races this season with his first victory since Talladega 36 races ago. He beat 42 other teams. He beat a handful of hopefuls who could have won but didn't. An elite group that understands the strange blend of disappointment and accomplishment.
We're doing everything that we could possibly do. We got a great race team and a race car, and we're just happy to have a good finish. You know, it's been a little while, and we've been struggling a little bit with these finishes. So today was definitely a great day for us. But man, when you're that close to winning a race, especially here in DuPont's backyard, we sure would like to pull it off, but got beat by fuel mileage again.
We're really happy regardless. You know, to come into this series as a rookie and finish in the top 5 week after week like we're doing now, it's a great testament to a good race team and a good sponsor, a good crew chief, and a good car owner. So it just gives me the luxury of having good days like today.
Today we had just a 4th place car, and you know, we ended up in victory lane, but it's awful great to be here.
Fuel mileage races don't lead to very exciting finishes. In fact, there hasn't been a close finish at Dover in a couple of years. Bobby won by 22 seconds on Sunday. The last 4 races at Dover have averaged almost a 12-second margin of victory. You have to go all the way back to the spring race of '97 to find a close finish. That's when Ricky Rudd edged Mark Martin. Benny Parsons joins us now. BP, back to the gas mileage. How much of a role does a driver play in determining how good the fuel mileage is going to be?
I think the driver is very, very important. I saw an in-car camera shot not too long ago when the camera was down on the driver's feet, and I saw this driver hitting the throttle as he was coming off the brake, or going on the brake and coming off the throttle at the same time. You can't do that. If you really wanted to save fuel, you would use one foot. You'd use your right foot. You'd come all the way off the gas. You would hit the brake. You'd come all the way off the brake and then hit the gasoline, and that would save a lot of fuel mileage.
What about the car? Mechanically, what can be done to increase the fuel mileage?
Well, the car has to be handling pretty doggone good. You can't go through the corner playing with the throttle. Every time that you hit the throttle, that you go down on the throttle, you're squirting gasoline, 4 squirters that squirt gasoline in the carburetor, and that robs a lot of fuel mileage. So once you go down on the throttle, you just got to be sure that you go down and stay there and keep from, you can't, if the chassis is off, then you start playing with the throttle. When you do that, you're using those squirters, and that uses a lot of fuel.
You know, traditionally, when you think about fuel mileage tracks, you really don't think about Dover, but now it's almost got to be a fact of life that you have to head into that Dover race thinking fuel mileage.
Because now that with the concrete surface up there, they've got the groove widened out to the point that those guys can race around Dover 2 or 3 wide and not make contact. And anytime you can do that at a racetrack, you're going to have a racetrack that is going to end up being a fuel mileage race, just like Michigan and California Speedways now. 2 of those racetracks are notorious for fuel mileage because the racetracks, the groove is so wide. Jeff
Gordon didn't win. But I think he was happy about it. It used to be they wouldn't be happy about a 2nd place finish because they expected to win every race. But they went into that race not looking to win necessarily, didn't they?
All Jeff Gordon's pre-race sound bites that he gave the media, he said, we want to finish the race. We don't want to worry about winning the race. Just the top 5 will be fine. And in the post-race interviews that we saw Jeff Gordon talking about, they really seemed to be content that, hey, we finished the race. Now we know what it's like to finish 400 laps. Now let's start worrying about trying to win one.
Tony Stewart's team opted to short pit late in the race, take on some tires and fuel earlier than everybody else. I thought the strategy might work. It wound up, it didn't. He finished 4th, so it was a good run for him. But I guess sometimes that gamble pays off, sometimes it doesn't.
I really didn't understand that. Zippy, I got to sit down and talk to Zippy and try to figure out exactly why he did that, why he stopped short, 35 laps to go, stopped and changed 4 tires. I really don't understand why he was trying to short pit at that point with just 1 more stop to go. If there's a stop after that, then I understand that, but 1 stop to go, I didn't understand that, John.
Well, they're going to win soon, though. And the reason I say that is because they're following the professor's formula for success.
And that is finish in the top 10 and then finish in the top 5 and then win. And they are finishing in the top 5. What's that? 2 races in a row in the top 5. What a phenomenal job that Zippy, all those guys are doing up with that 20 car. It's amazing the success they've had in 1999.
Now, what about the whole Joe Gibbs team, the pit stops right now? I mean, it used to be, they were okay, but now they're right up there with everybody else.
Oh, their pit stops are as good as anyone's. And Jeff Chandler, who heads up the pit crew division, and I'll say that at Joe Gibbs Racing, that's basically all that Jeff does is get the crews ready to practice pit stops and get their equipment ready to make pit stops, to make sure that the impact wrenches are not going to break, that the sockets are going to be replaced when they should be replaced, that the nuts are not going to hang up in them, and that's his job, and it looks to me like he's doing a pretty doggone good job.
Yeah, he needs to get a couple bonuses in there. John and Benny say, give Jeff a bonus, Joe Gibbs. Benny, stick around. Coming up on RPM tonight, Mike Dunn roars to victory in this week's Speed Shots. And when we come back, fuel calculations cost Jimmy Vasser his shot at victory at The Car FedEx Championship Series completed a swing of 6 oval track races in 7 events on Sunday at the Milwaukee Mile. Now it's time to start the summer swing through the streets and road courses. But Sunday's Miller Lite 225 will leave a lot of lasting memories. It was a race that could have been remembered for side-by-side, wheel-to-wheel action, and daring passes for the lead. But it will be remembered as a fuel mileage affair. It was a late splash and go by the race leader that brought about disappointment and self-blame.
I was saving fuel the whole time behind Montoya. Yeah. Ridiculous mileage I was getting. He was, whatever.
Tom Anderson, you just said you think you may have cost Jimmy the race?
I definitely cost him the race, Jan. There's no question about it, especially with the yellows as long as they were. We had enough fuel to go, and Jimmy had the car. I mean, Jimmy and Julian had everything working right. They had the Firestone tires living all day, and the Honda was leaned down, as proved Tracy did with the Honda engine. So, you know, I cost our guys the race today. There's no question about it.
Paul Tracy had not paid a visit to the winner's circle in more than 2 years, but his victory at Milwaukee could not have been better timed. A seemingly endless string of bad luck culminated with his collision a week ago with teammate Dario Franchitti. This week, the pendulum swung the other way for Tracy, narrowly crossing the finish line inside a closing fuel window.
Well, there wasn't much. I know we made it around on the in lap, so we had enough. So, you know, the fuel pressure warning light was on, and usually when that comes on, you're out of fuel within a lap or two, and we stretched that for 5 laps.
Oh, we were really close. You know, without that last yellow, I think it would have been cut and dry. We were figuring we were going to roll across the line without engine. So, but no, I mean, what can I say? The engine, the Honda was just fantastic on mileage. We knew we had to get good mileage, and we had to go for it. Paul drove a heck of a race, still being very competitive with the fuel turned way back, you know, and just a great team effort today. And I mean from both sides of the team to be fast with both cars on this track all day. Dario had a little problem in the pits, but he was fast. That's big.
With Sunday's win, Tracy moves a little bit closer to the top in the wins by active drivers list. Of course, Michael Andretti tops that list with 38 career victories. Al Unser Jr. sits in the second spot among active drivers, 31. Jimmy Vasser is fourth, followed by Greg Moore. Ty Manso suffered one of the nastiest looking pit road accidents I've ever seen when he was run over by the left rear tire of Michael Andretti's car. Amazingly, Manso was not injured, although he is very sore today. Manso says the incident was a shame because, get this, the race car was great, and he says they could have won that race. Amazing he's still thinking like that. Coming up on RPM tonight, a rough night for the trucks in Bristol. We'll talk to the professor about it next.
Oh, here we go. Contact. Wallace is going up, touches the wall, and boom, boom, boom.
And Hensley is all over Jay Sauter.
Now Hensley's right there. Oh, and he makes contact. Is he going to save this thing? No, I thought he was going to save it.
Hard contact for Mike Wallace. Oh, that hurts. Wallace's truck is junk.
It was a cheap shot that, you know, it was easier for him to take the turners around and wreck us.
What the heck was going on at Bristol, Benny? Was the moon full or what?
John, no, because trust me, I drove all night Saturday night to get back to Charlotte to do NASCAR today yesterday, and I kept checking for the moon. I said, is it a full moon? I finally found it. It was about half a moon.
So what was going on? Why was it so crazy?
John, I really don't know. I think maybe just Bristol, because, you know, it's got to be an unbelievable place when you have raced at Odessa, I-70 Speedway. The 2 weeks before that, they seated about 10,000 people. Those guys come into Bristol, 130,000 seats there. They've seen it on TV for the last 25 years. They say, wow, I sure would like to win at this place. And they become very, very aggressive.
What about Jack Sprague, man? His truck was strong all night long. Looks like he's on a big roll right now.
He really is. And it's very difficult to see any of those guys stepping up the plate right now and beating Sprague, because you're right. He is definitely on a roll. He and Dennis seem to really have all the pieces together right now.
Ron Hornaday had won the last 2 truck races at Bristol from the pole position. He wound up qualifying 24th. That put him on the backstretch, which is normally a huge hindrance. But, Benny, the first pit stop, he made up some spots. How did that happen?
You know, we were talking about that at Bristol, and I think maybe Bristol is the only track now the trucks run on that have 2 pit roads. So it's the first time they made a pit stop. Sprague and all those guys that stopped on the front stretch, when they go back on the racetrack, they kind of lollygagged around and did not catch up with the pace car, because I looked and there was almost the back straightaway between the trucks following the pace car, and Jack Sprague. Hornaday had pitted on the backstretch. As soon as he finished that pit stop, he blasted out of there, and those guys simply had not come around. And he gained about 4 spots on that first pit stop. Well, trust me, the next 2 or 3 pit stops, he didn't gain anything because those guys said, we've got to fly back around to catch up to the pace car. They did that, and then his disadvantage showed up.
Now, this weekend, they're at Texas Motor Speedway. High speeds, big track. I guess we won't see the fender cuffs, not fisticuffs, but fender cuffs we saw last weekend.
No, please, guys, please. This is Texas Motor Speedway. You're going way too fast. Wait till you get to a road course. Wait till you go out to Topeka or Portland. Portland would be a good place if you're going to pay somebody back.
Dale Earnhardt Jr. won the Busch Series race at Dover. I think I predicted that 2 weeks ago. I said now after he gets that Winston Cup debut out of the way, Katie barred the door. Looks like they're back on track.
Boy, is that car strong on Saturday afternoon. Man, oh man. It looked like the Dale Earnhardt Jr. of 1998. And I think you're right, John, when you talked about it after Charlotte, when he got the 600 behind him in his NASCAR Winston Cup debut, I think that the team and Earnhardt Jr. finally said, thank goodness that's over. Now we can go back to winning some races on the NASCAR Busch Series.
All right, Benny, stick around. Next on RPM tonight, we will rock your world in this week's Speed Shots.
Speed Shots is brought to you by Quaker State for protection beyond 3,000 miles under any driving conditions.
They always say, why don't somebody kick John Force's butt? We did it, okay? Get off my back.
Trans Am at Mid-Ohio over the weekend. Paul Gentilozzi drove to his 2nd victory of the year. Brian Semo came home in the 2nd spot. Dorsey Schrader was 5th. When we come back, what's the ruling on this? The professor has the answer in this week's email. Rule about loose tires in the pits.
Loose tires that roll across pit road, the crews will be penalized a 15-second penalty for those tires rolling across pit road. The car will be held in the pits for 15 seconds. That's the rule.
What about the Busch Series? What happens with that?
When the Busch Series, you know, NASCAR regulates the amount of sets of tires that the Busch Series can use. So in the Busch Series, they lose a set of tires. Wow. If they only have 3 sets of tires to put on each position, now they only have 2 if they let a tire go across pit road.
Sam from Georgia wants to know why Jimmy Hensley was penalized for contact, but Jay Sauter wasn't penalized for wrecking Mike Wallace.
Well, Sam, they could do something about the contact with Hensley and Jay Sauter because the race wasn't over. And you saw the contact that Jimmy Hensley made on the truck race with Jay Sauter, and they penalized Jimmy Hensley, sent him to the back of the longest line. Now, when the contact between Jay Sauter and Mike Wallace happened, that was on the last lap. The race was over. There really wasn't anything that NASCAR could do about it then except a fine. And we've talked to NASCAR today, have not heard anything about any fines for anyone at Bristol.
And finally, Mary Jane from New York writes, the first pit position on pit road used to be the prime pit spot. Why doesn't the pole sitter choose this pit anymore?
Well, Mary Jane, I think that a lot of the pole sitters do choose that first one, but I think a lot of racetracks, it depends on the racetrack, because if the white line that NASCAR uses to determine who wins the race off pit road, if it's on down from the first pit, then it isn't as big an advantage as it is to other racetracks. But given the choice between the first pit and pit in the middle, I think most pole position winners now will choose that very first pit. So when they get the car rolling, they'll go across that white line where the NASCAR determines the race off pit road.
And John from Charlotte wants to know why the Michigan race is such a big deal.
The Michigan race is a big deal because that's where all the manufacturers are located. That's where Pontiac, Chevrolet, Ford, they have all those suites. They sit up on top of the suites. They watch the pit crews. They watch the cars go around the racetrack. And when you look up and see your Boston Ford or Chevrolet or Pontiac looking, trust me, you want to do better.
Hey, who needs email, right, when you got the professor right here? Benny, thanks a lot. We'll get together again next week and talk about Michigan. If you have a question for the professor, log on to the internet and visit ESPN.com. and click on the auto racing link or the NASCAR link on the left side of the page. When that page finishes loading, you'll find our email link at the bottom. RPM Tonight, we'll be back after this. Our Holiday Inn Express Fast Fact, the NASCAR Wants to Up points race remains a close one heading to Michigan this weekend. Dale Jarrett continues to hold down the top spot, but Jeff Burton is just 51 behind. Open-wheel driver Ryan Newman is getting a shot at stock cars. Next Wednesday, Newman will test a Busch Series car owned by Ray Evernham and Jeff and Brooke Gordon. The test is slated to take place at the Memphis Motorsports Park. Tuesday, Dr. Jerry Punch returns with this week's House Call. Plus, we'll talk to Jan Beekes about Sunday's Champ Car race at Milwaukee. We'll see you back here again at 7 o'clock Eastern. Good night, everybody.
This has been a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports. For more, log on to ESPN.com, a part of the Go Network. Go.com.